about the guidelines of today. So during the session, we would really appreciate if you can mute your mic when you're not talking, but please feel free to answer our questions when you want to, and to have your webcam on if possible. And make sure that you have a private space around you so you don't have too much noises and people going around, so you can focus on the talk show, on the knowledge. And if you have any questions, use Zoom chat box to put those in, and we'll answer your questions in the Q&A session. And lastly, our session today will be recorded for our YouTube, so we really hope for your cooperation. Thank you. So about TCB, again, we help people to be better in English communication skills and global citizenship, and that is pretty broad. That's which leads us to the session today of emotional resilience, a quality, a trait of a global citizen. We're based in Sydney, but we have friends and colleagues around the world. Like me, currently I'm in Japan here, but I'm from Vietnam originally, and I'm staying in Japan for my uni. About a little bit about me, your MC today is I'm marketing major. I'm experienced in teaching and facilitation. I'm a former of ISAC, TEDx in my university, of global business case competition, and etc. I like to work out. When I'm sad, I play ukulele, and I enjoy Japanese food, especially a thing called gyoza. It's like dumplings, but Japanese type. And now we won't let you wait anymore. Let's welcome our speaker today, Victoria.
So nice to meet you all and hear all about your how you're feeling and your passions, and it's really interesting. So nice to get to know all of you. Dad, I have something to say to you. You can draw. As long as you can pick up a pencil, it means you're able to draw. So never doubt yourself.
Thank you, Victoria. Thank you. So yeah, Victoria, how's the weather in your place?
It's really cold, but it's sunny. I'm trying to make the most out of this like cold, summer days, because apparently when it gets to January or February, you only get like 5 hours of sunlight, and it's like dark from 8 a.m. till like 3. I mean, it's sunlight only from 8 a.m. till 3 p.m. So the majority of the day will be like pitch black. And so I'm like, okay, I'm trying to make the most out of it, even though we're in second round of lockdown.
Thank you, Victoria. So yeah, could you mind introducing yourself a little bit to our audiences today?
Yeah, so I like to call myself an emotional designer. There is no physical title for that. Like, it's not like a job out there, but I've made it up essentially because I specifically like to design for behavior change. But in real world, I would call myself like a product designer or UI UX designer. I'm currently studying my master's in digital experience design at Hyper Island, UK. And my hobbies I love listening to podcasts. So if you enjoy listening to podcasts too, then we'll definitely get along. And I love nature, adventure, and anything that is crafty and experimentative as well. So yeah.
Thank you, Victoria. We can see that Victoria's have a lot of things that may be in common with us. Like we have seen in the chat box that he'll share with us he likes to do graphic designs. I think that's quite the same with Victoria's experience. So I hope that we have a lot in common to share today. We have another picture of Victoria enjoying nature as well. So you might have seen yourself in that. Okay. So, So in starting with the session today, I have a question to everybody. The topic is emotional resilience. So the first thing we need to discuss is, what is emotion? The first question of today is, what is emotion? And I would like to hear our audience's answer first before Victoria share with us the definition. Okay, so I'm gonna ask a random person in the room. Okay, so Michelle.
Yeah.
Okay, so what would be your definition of emotions?
I think emotion is as simple as like whatever we're feeling. So yeah, that's my answer.
Okay, what we're feeling. Good answer. Good answer. Thank you, Michelle. How about Lena? What do you think?
So for me, I think emotions are thousands of feelings that we cannot see, of course, and it's all related to certain things like people, memories, place, yeah, just anything around us.
It's something that we feel, and there can be a lot of emotions. Thank you, Lena. We have an answer from Hung as well in the chat box. He said, I think it is something that makes us feel either sad or happy. Interesting. Very straightforward way of thinking. Thank you. Okay, how about you, Victoria? What would be your definition of it?
Okay, so you're not all wrong. Emotions are like feelings are part of our emotions, but they're not entirely what makes our emotions, right? So emotions are concepts built from our past experiences and our actions and our physical sensations and the things around our social environment had taught us. So for example, so they're different from feelings because feelings is what happens inside your body. Like you guys said, the facts of like, you know, your palm being really sweaty, your tummy churning, but it's the meaning that we give those feelings are what we call emotions. So when you're sad, try to separate the concept of sadness to what is actually happening in your body and how your body is responding to the situation. Because we understood sadness as when you're crying is because when we're younger, when we're crying, your mom or your dad or someone in your family or your like social circle will ask you like, why are you sad? And then you as a child associate sadness with crying. So I hope that kind of makes sense. So the word sadness, the emotions that we use to describe our feelings are concepts that we built from a very young age.
Thank you, Victoria. So another question is that, is there any number to indicate the number of emotions that it exists in the world?
Great question. So there is, I think, over 8,000 emotions in the emotional vocabulary list. And there can be more because emotions are just words that we make up to label how we feel, right? So for example, like going back to childhood, you know, when you were angry, your mom might call your anger as cranky fairy, right? That to a child, cranky fairy is an emotion. So you can just make up any words you want and label that as a certain type of emotion. And the more granular you're able to like label these emotions, the better you are at being specific with how you feel.
Thank you, Victoria, for a really well-researched answer on that. I have never learned much about emotions. I was surprised when you said there are more than 8,000 emotions possible in the world. And it can be even more.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so the topic of today is emotional resilience. But what is this concept? So can you share with us the definition of emotional resilience, what it is?
Yeah, so scientifically, emotional resilience is the ability to thrive in the face of adversity. But personally, it is the awareness of our inner potentials and taking a reflective responsibility of our experiences. You know, we all need emotional resilience in our everyday life. At the end of every single day, we accumulate an entire bag of emotions. And if you don't believe me, experiment with yourself. Like, how many emotions do you express in one day? It won't just be ecstatic. It won't just be surprised. It won't just be shame. It might be all of them. And so if we don't give these emotions a dignifying ending, then over time we'll build a pile of emotional baggage that will weigh us down. And when something unprecedented like for example, the COVID-19 occurs, we don't have the strength or the energy to face these situations. And Anne Maston, like a PhD in research on resilience, would call it surge capacity, where we're running on emotional overdraft. So for example, like the pandemic, what has happened was that most of us had run on emotional overdraft, where many of us tried to continue to live like a normal life, or maybe even thrive because we think we have more time in our day, right? But we didn't realize that the situation we are in is causing us to use a lot more energy, from sadness, reading the news, or anger, reading the news too, or boredom because there's nothing to do and you're in lockdown, or maybe even like frustration, right? Like you're just angry because of what's happening around, or frustrated because you want to do something or you wanted to achieve something, you had a plan for 2020 and it got shut down, right? So all of those emotions are using your energy. And therefore, during a pandemic, when we're on emotional overdraft, we can feel very depressed and very anxious and a lack of hope.
Thank you, Victoria. So Victoria was really kindly prepared this slide for us to summarize the definition of emotional resilience. So scientifically, it's ability to thrive in the face of adversity, but personally, to all of us, is how we recognize the inner potentials and how we respond, how we react to adversities in our experiences. Thank you, Victoria, for this definition. So audiences, guys, if you have any other thoughts, you can just freely tell us in the chat box. Thank you. Okay. So in terms of emotional resilience, I believe a lot of us have different definitions and even experiences regarding this. So what would be the usual misunderstanding about emotional resilience?
I think the biggest misconception would be the fact that emotional resilience is something that is built from a young age. In the past, a lot of research have kind of looked into this space and concluded that emotional resilience requires a supportive caregiver, someone who can support the child, who can love the child, whether it's a parent or whether it's like someone from school, you know, an adult, a role model, right? And that if you don't have that, then it's so much harder to build emotional resilience later in life. But that isn't the case, because, you know, what we experience as a young child is, yeah, that it might make it a little bit harder, but it's all about the experiences that we put ourselves into in our later lives. So being in rich experiences, like seeing different cultures, immersing yourself in diverse spaces, really helps you build this emotional resilience and this tolerance. And that's one of the biggest misconceptions that I think many people have about emotional resilience, because it's not just something it's not just faced in childhood trauma, but it's faced throughout your entire life, and we need it and we build it throughout our lives. And it's not just sitting within our first 10 years when we don't really have control of our space.
Thank you, Victoria. I have many friends who thought that emotional resilience is something that is in the genes, that they were born with it. But thanks to your answer, I think there's a broader way to look at it, and we can actually build it through experiences. So Victoria, can you share with us your experiences in developing, in discovery in your emotional resilience abilities?
Yeah, well, it's hard to say because I think I am still working on it, but I have to say that emotional resilience comes around when you're at your lowest point. So for example, studying abroad can be so challenging because you're not around your friends and family. You're so far away from home. And although at first sight, that seems like super exciting, you know, you get to like finally leave your country and it's filled with like adrenaline, right? But then you come to a new space and you like a foreign country and you realize you don't know anyone at all. And what's worse is that if you're right now studying abroad, which I don't know if everyone is or not, it's like the pandemic, right? So making friends is so much harder, and you need a lot of emotional resilience to kind of help you through this. And so when I came to Berlin, I didn't know a single person at all, and it was really scary. And that's when my emotional resilience needed to come in, and I needed to practice that. And it's something that you've got to work on every single day.
Thank you, Victoria. So may I ask, guys, participants, if you have ever had any experience going abroad? Are you experiencing? Can you answer in the chat box? Like, where have you gone study abroad, or maybe in another city in your own country? Okay, yeah, just type in the chat box. We're waiting for your answers.
How was your experience, Dad?
Oh, for me?
Yeah.
Okay, so currently I'm in Japan, and I gotta say, the Vietnamese culture and Japanese culture is really different In Vietnam, it's much more informal. Maybe when you meet a new person, maybe you can wave, you can shake hands. But when I first came to Japan, I met strangers, and you know what they did to me? They do this. They have a very low bow, and I was surprised. What are you doing? I don't know you. Why are you doing that to me? You're older than me as well. And like, that's just how they show their appreciation. Yeah, when you meet a person. So that was surprising to me, and it took me a while to really learn how to do that like them. Yeah, not to show the hands like hi like this, but to do the bow. It's something different for me.
Definitely a culture shock. I remember when I was in Japan and they did that to me too, and I was like, I don't know what to say. Like, what do I do? I'm just standing here and I'm like, help.
Like, you can just say thank you or something like that, right? It's different.
Exactly, yeah.
Oh, we have in the chat box, we have a few answers. Most people said no, but we have Michelle and Visheda shared their experience. Okay, Michelle, can you elaborate on what you have shared in the chat box?
Yeah, so actually, I just graduated from my uni, and I'm originally from the capital of Indonesia. It's Jakarta, but for uni, I'm studying in Bandung, and I really enjoy being like far because I have freedom, and then like the city is great. Like I get to experience like fresh air, and then like going out like every day, and then like the food is also cheap. So we do a lot of like culinary trips, and yeah, I miss those kind of moments a lot.
Thank you, Michelle. Yeah. All right. And we have a sharing from Visheda as well. Oh, so you said you have moved from your hometown to the capital city. Okay, so Visheda, can you open your mic?
Yeah, well, like I've said, I moved from my hometown in the province to the capital city for about 2 years now. And at that time when it was a plan, I was really looking forward to it. I was very excited because yay, I get to live on my own, those kind of things. However, after about like the one thing that I regret most was that I thought that I would be fine and that I would just come back because it was still in the same city, so I can just visit my friends whenever I want. But then I couldn't because of overload of work and everything. And in about 2 weeks or so, I started to feel very emotional for some reason, and that I really need somebody to talk about it. Yeah.
And did you find the person to talk to?
Well, I have a sister who study abroad, and so she kind of understand what I'm going through. So we talked and share about it, and it's like I said, it's about 2 years now. So I'm getting used to it. Yes.
Thank you, Visheda. Yeah. Okay, Victoria, how do you think about the stories?
Yeah, no, I think for Visheda, like it's, to tell the hard truth, it's not going to be easier, and it's only over time do feelings kind of like these emotions kind of gradually subside. But it's good that you have a sister to talk to. I think human connection is something that is really important, and that's something that I can sort of talk more about later. I don't know, but I have someone that I speak to every Sunday. It's actually Rachel, who's on this call, and that's why I told her to come on. But yeah, no, she's someone that I've been friends with for 14 years, and every single Sunday, without a doubt, we always have a call. And I think that's something that I can recommend to you, is that if you have someone that's really close to you, like your sister, I think it's really important to kind of like do regular check-ins with her, and if she allows you to have that safe space to talk about anything, and that she would just be a listening ear, then that's really, really great. And it's really fortunate to have someone like that in your life.
Thank you, Victoria. So we can see like one common way for people to keep our emotions resilient is to have somebody to talk to share our stress, to share our happiness, share our stories, and we just want to be heard, and we'll feel better, probably. But is it the only way to achieve emotional resilience? Is there any way that we can do it alone when when people are busy?
Yeah. So, as I said earlier, our bodily sensations and our social structures create our emotional concepts. Then it works the other way around too. So, taking care of our body and expanding our emotional vocabulary can help us build emotional resilience. So, don't avoid them, like turn into them. When we are physically healthy and have high emotional vocabulary, how do you feel and what happens? Well, if you feel good, then you can handle, so first of all, if you feel good, then you can handle these uncomfortable situations much better. So an example that when I was speaking to a psychologist who told me was that there is a way you would walk around if you're healthy, right? And there is a way you would walk around if you are trying to protect yourself from a broken shoulder. And it's sort of unhealthy and distorts the way your body moves in space. So therefore, you can carry a distorted perception of your environment. So the first thing I would say is taking care of your body. And that is including sleep, physical movement. Those things are really important. Getting your 8 hours of sleep is really actually quite important, because if you don't, you will see the effect of it later down in your life. The second thing of it is that I said earlier was the expansion of your emotional vocabulary. The more granular and specific you are able to identify your sensations with emotional labeling, then the better you are able to kind of recognize these different situations. So for example, if you only knew happy, sad, angry, shame, then whenever you experience anything, it will only be one of those 4 emotions. So in our Western society, they're laughing at people's misfortune is seen as being disrespectful, right? And many people thus may experience shame or feel guilty when they laugh at people's falling over or hurting themselves. But what if you had the German word called Schadenfreude, which means laughing at other people's misfortune? Then you wouldn't have to feel shame and you would feel something else, And so expanding your emotional vocabulary is really important. And that's why a lot of psychologists talk about learning new languages, because there is words in other languages, emotional words in other languages that can be more specific and help you kind of expand that understanding of emotions.
Thank you. I think that is really interesting because we don't usually have the chance to talk about emotions in a scientifically ways like this. So the point of, I assume that the point from Victoria's sharing is that we need to learn how to call out the name of that emotions, or we can just make up a name for that emotion, but we need to find a way to recognize it and accept it as something that we are actually having, not to push it away. Is it correct, Victoria?
Yeah, you can make up words for how you feel. It doesn't have to be sad, right? Sometimes when I'm feeling down, I call myself a hedgehog because I'm really feeling really crap. And then I'm like, okay, hedgehog is coming out right now. And cool. You recognize these behavior patterns and you know how to handle that. And that kind of comes to my second part, right? So when hedgehog does come out, right? When sadness does come out, how are you going to and give that emotion a dignifying ending? Like I said earlier, sleep and physical movement is really important, but creative expression, we've got Hang He who enjoys graphic design and other people who said they enjoy drawing as well. That's creative expression. That's really important. Singing, dancing, laughing, breathing. These are all key elements of activities that we should do when, not just when we're feeling at rock bottom, but every single day, building these skills into our everyday lifestyle.
I see. You just said a really interesting point right there. It doesn't we can only build our emotional resilience when we're feeling down, but we can build it every day. I think this is important because usually when we're happy, we forget to prolong that happiness. Okay, we're happy, and then it just goes after a few hours, and another emotion comes in again. So we need to find ways to prolong the happiness in our life. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, that's the thing, right? We always think that we only need to build, we only need to do something for ourselves and take care of ourselves or have a pamper day when we're feeling at our lowest, right? But that is already too late. So another psychologist that I had spoken to kind of gave this analogy of emotional baggages. So every single day we accumulate a bag of emotions, right? Like I said earlier. And every single day, like you taking the trash out, we have to take these emotional baggages out of our house or out of ourselves, right? And if we don't, then they just sit inside of ourselves. And that's how depression and anxiety happens, is when we have all these baggages and we're never actually going into it and turning into them, but instead we're just letting them sit inside ourselves, or we're trying to avoid or ignore that feeling, and then it builds up. So what a lot of people that I've spoken to recommend is that at the end of every single day, or even whenever you have the time to, because I know maybe nighttime is not for everyone, go and do something for yourself, like whether it's 5 minutes or 10 minutes, because even if, for example, you know, in a situation where a lion is chasing after you, right? Even if the lion is like out of your picture, that emotion, that fear that you're having is still there. You haven't actually gotten rid of that fear, even though the line is gone. So those like external factors are called stressors, right? So even if we remove the stresses from our environment, it doesn't mean our emotion had disappeared. They're still there. And so we need to do something to kind of give those emotions a reflective process and give them a dignifying ending. So for me, it's like at the end of every day, I go for like a 30-minute walk and I listen to my favorite podcast. Or even if I don't have time, then I will even just go for a 5-minute, chat with my friend. I'll call a friend and talk to her or to him, whoever it is, I'll just call him or her and have a nice little 5-minute, 10-minute chat if I can't be bothered going out for a walk. So whatever makes you feel good at that moment, do that. Whether it's drawing, like you don't have to, it's not like you're selling this artwork to anybody. It's just for yourself. It's your own creative expression. And that's really important.
Thank you, Victoria. I think after today, I would try your advice on that, to really find a way to define the emotions that I'm feeling when I'm stressed or when I'm happy. Yeah. And if those are baggages, and I'll try to find a way to take it out. Thank you.
For some people, it's cooking. I've spoken to a few people during my research, and they were saying that cooking helps them. Like the way that you can just play around with food and not think about how like it looks or how it might taste, right? And it's just a creative way of expressing their feelings, right? And yeah, I think that's really cool that they can do that. I mean, cooking stresses me out, so no, not for me.
Okay, I see a few comments in the chat box. We have Gary sharing his experience in Beijing, and he got run over by 6 bikes. Gary, are you there? Can you share about this?
I thought you meant, are you there? Like,
yeah, I am here. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I was nearly run over by 6 bikes. I don't think I would be still alive if I was by 6 bikes. But yeah, sorry guys, I'm on the train as well. But my point is, yeah, I think I had it easy though, because I am Chinese, and going to Beijing, at least I could communicate. So I think it's interesting, Victoria, because I don't think you knew how to speak German when you moved to Germany, right? So how did you navigate that challenge?
Well, I still don't know how to speak German, to be fair. And I've always been told to learn German. But I think there is some kind of light to it, right? Like when you don't know how to speak German and you try to communicate with people, and if you just smile and be like, I don't know how to speak it, and then they, like, I feel most people is quite understanding, and you have fun. Like they ask you where you're from, they try their very best, and their English is not usually the best. And then you just laugh at their mistakes, and then they laugh at your, like your stories that you're sharing with them, and you have a really good banter. Like there is some kind of joy in when you don't know that language, but they try their best and you try your best to be friendly with them and make that kind of communication happen. It's not always easy, but I think as long as you put a smile on it, then they're much more willing to kind of like help out and talk to you, despite the language barrier. And most people in Berlin can speak English, which is a huge advantage for me.
Have you had any sorry for the train. I will ask it in the chat.
Okay, thank you, Gary. So our Matthew, our TCB colleague, will be collecting questions in the chat box. So yeah, don't worry, we'll go back in the Q&A later. Okay, let's go back to the topic of emotional resilience. Let's go back to that. So now we've learned that the first step to develop our emotional resilience is to recognize it, appreciate it, and find ways to understand why it happened and find ways to take the negative baggages out so we can have the positive baggages in. Okay. So now let's just say that we have learned how to develop our own resilience in emotions. How do we even help other people?
Wait, sorry, I just got to backtrack one step.
Okay.
There is no such thing as negative and positive emotions.
Okay.
So like all emotions are welcomed, and like it is not about only giving dignifying endings to negative emotions, but I like to call them uncomfortable emotions or regulatory emotions. It's about giving all emotions a dignifying ending, even happy ones, even sad ones, whatever you're feeling, they're so important. I think in fact, like, you know, our uncomfortable emotions or our negative ones are actually so much more valuable than our happy ones. Because if you reflect back all the times when you've ever felt really down or really low, that's when you had the opportunity to kind of change your scenario and help you kind of grow. And so by building emotional resilience, it's about seeing those uncomfortable emotions not as negative, but seeing them as a way of an opportunity to find something to give you a bit more light and to learn from those mistakes as well. And that's how you grow and become better. So that's like
Thank you, Victoria.
Like,
thank you.
I just wanted to
Thank you for
clarify.
correcting me. Yeah.
No, but in terms of like how to help other people build up emotional resilience, the key thing, if you're a friend and you have someone that is studying overseas, is that just be their listening ear. You know, there is nothing you can technically do. So the only thing you can really do is validate their experience. You know, tell them that I hear you, I care for you, I value you as a person. You know, depending on the situation, you know, your experience right now matters and your feelings are very, very much valid. And so if you need to cry, tell them like cry. If you need to be angry, be angry. You know, these emotions need to come out before you can ever leave them. So once you've felt these emotions at its core, then do something for yourself, like I said earlier, or do something together with the person. You know, let's have a Zoom call and cook together. The other day, like a few months ago when I was at quite a low point, me and Rachel did like friendship bracelets together. You know, there is so much you can do just via Zoom call and via the technology that we're given. And so use this technology for its benefits and not for its, you know, social media and like, you know, as a distraction, like use it to its advantage.
Thank you. I really like the idea of how we use the technologies for our own benefits, but not to make money for somebody else. I like that,
Yeah.
and I think I personally should be more conscious of that as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you know, I can't remember what the saying is, but there was a quote that said, you know, technology is a tool, right? But once it starts being able to control your behavior and your attitude, then it's no longer a tool that just serves for you. It becomes your controlling thing. Like it controls you. It doesn't serve you anymore. It's controlling you. And so we should take back that control and use technology to its own advantage and, you know, like making connections with people for the right reason and for the right sort of feelings, not just making random connections that we see online. And, you know, when you ever see yourself, you know, I have a tip, whenever you see yourself going on social media, like scrolling, why don't you try to call that someone, you know, instead and see how that makes you feel. I do so many random calls in a day and I make sure that almost every single day I call one friend. Otherwise I might as well go insane because they're like, I have met people in Berlin, but it's nothing the same as friends back home or friends and family back home if you have, you know, the fortune of having these people around you. So you just call someone, you know, and talk to them instead of scrolling through Instagram or instead of just texting. That relationship that you bond with them is a lot stronger immediately.
Thank you. So yeah, we have just heard a lot of advices from Victoria about how we can build our own emotional resilience and help other people. So I would like to ask the participants here as well. I want to know, have you ever tried anything to build up your own emotional resilience? So okay, I'll just ask a random person. Visheda?
Yes, sorry for the background music. Well, like Victoria Victoria said, she suggested something like cooking and calling a friend. Well, mine, I guess it would be drawing. Drawing. And however, there are times that I clean more often as well. Clean, because I don't know, but I find myself whenever, like before a test or anything, I need to get myself focused. I need to just in full concentrations. I don't want anything near me. I don't want anybody to talk to me and stuff like that. So I would go clean, and like my shoes has to be clean, the bathroom has to be clean, my room has to be clean, everything needs to be clean before so that I can just feel good about myself. Oh, I actually did something today. Yeah.
That's so perfect. And I love that. You know, it can be anything, like any physical movement. And cleaning is great. I have a friend who does the exact same thing as well. She cleans whenever she's stressed or she has something important to do. And me and her always joke around that I would love her to as my roommate, because that means my house would always be clean. I would just put her under a lot of pressure. But as a joke, obviously. But yeah, like that's great. Like if cleaning helps, then it helps. Like, you know, whatever it is that helps you, that's all that matters. It doesn't have to be meditation or reflection, but when you're doing that, it's afterwards, it's quite soothing. And remember that, and try to kind of find things similar to that every single day, because you don't want to just attend to it when you're rock bottom.
So thank you both, Visha and Victoria, for your sharings. I would like to ask one more person to share about your experience. If you cannot talk, if you cannot talk, you can just type in the chat box, and we will see your comments on how you have tried to build your emotional resilience. Okay, I would like to ask, Tao, are you there?
Yeah, hi.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah,
So we
nice
are
to meet you.
discussing about ways we can develop our emotional resilience. So have you ever tried something like that?
I think I'm not much really know well about emotional resilience, but one time my Australian friend told me that you are resilient. So when I experienced one really tough time in my life, and I tried to balance my emotion by meditation a lot, and then when I feel okay, I feel okay with that feeling when I think about that incident in my life, and I try to face to that problem, and then I want to deal with that problem instead of staying away from it. So yeah, I think that's one of my memory that I think about resilience.
Thank you. That is really courageous of you, Tao.
I know, I was
Sorry?
going to ask, can you tell me a situation where you needed the resilience?
I think is when, like, the most important thing is that it's really tough. I mean, and I, instead of just in the past, I used to just, instead of thinking about it, I just ignored, like nothing has happened, and this time is different. I mean, I did meet I mean, she's psychologist, and she advised me a lot about how to face to this problem, because if I try to ignoring this problem, it will come with me until the end of this life. That and I think this it's helped me a lot in, like, facing to problem with another feeling, not just yeah I think so.
Nice, thank you.
Okay, thank you everybody for sharing your experiences in building emotional resilience. So I do believe one important thing we learned from this is that the first thing we have to do is to recognize that we have these feelings. It's reasonable because we were taught to do it from our childhood until we learn, until we grow up, and now it's time we learn to find a new way to react to it and to be more comfortable with our feelings.
Yeah, because I think from a very young age, we've always been taught that angry or sadness is something that is not welcomed in the public eye. And that's really important because that's really important to know, that is because that it isn't something that we should be shy about. Angry, sadness, shame, all these feelings, all these emotions have meanings to them. When someone is angry, you can ask them, what are you trying to protect? What are you what is it that you're trying to protect? Is it unfairness? Is it the lack of autonomy, the lack of freedom? A lot of times when someone is angry, it's because one of those three things. And when you're able to understand the meaning behind your anger, then you're able to kind of find ways to help yourself from it. So if it's oh, it's a lack of autonomy, it's a lack of freedom, then think about it. How can you give yourself a bit more freedom in this space? What can you control? What can't you control? And when you kind of start opening up these emotions and looking towards them, they have a lot of meaning behind them that can really help you kind of continue on, moving forward, giving meanings to your life, living a meaningful life and doing things that make you happy.
Thank you. So yeah, to finish the sharings of how we build emotional resilience, I would like to share mine as well. When I first came to Japan, I did a thing that I have never thought I would ever done in my life. I tried, wait for it, skincare. For most boys, we never did skincare before in our lives. But when I first came to Japan, I was stressed about many things, the cultural differences, about the studies, the work. I had my first part-time job in Japan. I had a lot of stress, and I always think my family is expecting a lot from me, and I cannot, let myself down like that. I cannot let them down like that. And then I was stressed for that kind of thinking. I started to do more for other people than to do anything for me, for myself. And one day, my cousins, she told me, why don't I try to do something for myself? And I said, what can I try? I don't have enough time. And she said, how about skincare? Japan is famous for those. And I just bought really simple things like face wash. That is a simple thing, right? And maybe the toner. Yeah. So that's the first thing I tried. And
yeah.
So it's just really things simple,
Yeah, I was gonna say, I was gonna ask, how did you get such perfect skin? Now I know why.
No, it's not perfect. It's because the Zoom filter, it looks like that automatically. I don't know why. But yeah.
Gosh.
So I think we can try things that we have never tried before to see how it works.
And even when you're studying abroad, there is so much to learning about yourself, that the opportunity to learn about yourself and be independent. And that is something that we should kind of see that as an opportunity and be grateful for it. And learning about our emotions, that's a really big thing. Like sitting here and understanding, how can I help myself? Because I think when we're living with our family and our friends in our close vicinity, it's so easy for us to just ignore it or distract it and move away from it, right? But when you're having to face it on your own, then you really kind of got to build that resilience to face it. Otherwise, it will just lead down a really bad hole that I don't want to talk too much about. But yeah. And so I think it's really important. I think I can share on a similar sentiment with you. When I came here, I'm really scared of bugs. I absolutely hate bugs. Oh my gosh, right? And so this one day, I was showering and there was a giant spider on the top of my shower head, and I did not know what to do about it. And I was just like, oh my God, and no one's here to help me, and I don't have any bug spray. And I just had to build that, I guess, resilience or that courage to just kill this bug. And it was just too early in the morning for me to handle. But I was like, if I never lived abroad, then I would never know how to do these things. And so I guess there's always learning experiences in times when you're feeling quite down or quite alone. There's always things to look towards.
That is true. We have to learn how to be emotional resilience by having a lot of experiences in life. But in reality, not everybody can have the luxury, can have the chance to go abroad. So I have this last question for you, Victoria. Can you recommend some ways or like any sources of knowledge so we can get some emotions knowledge?
Yeah, that's so true. And I feel so lucky that I get to kind of, be abroad and learn these skills. But if you're living like wherever you are and you haven't studied abroad yet, or you're not planning to either, I think immerse yourself in different groups, like friendship groups, right? A lot of the times that we are so stuck with our immediate friendship group or the group that we kind of grew up with, that our thinking and their thinking, your thinking and their thinking is so similar. This is called like group bias. And that's where you all think, group thinking, that's where you all think the same thing, right? And so try to immerse yourself with different types of people, good or bad, or, people who are quiet, people who are outgoing, like a range of people, and understand why they act a certain way that they act. That was something that I really enjoyed doing back in Australia too. Like I just like mixing myself with different types of people and understanding different cultures, like why do they think this way and why do they think that way. And I think when you're kind of like immerse yourself in different environments, that's where you can really build like your emotional resilience, because you understand that, oh, like angry can mean X, Y, and Z. It doesn't just mean this. Or sadness can look like X, Y, and Z, doesn't just have to look like this. And then you get to know more about your own emotions and being more emotionally aware. In terms of books, like I would recommend reading How Emotions Are Made by Lisa Barrett. That's one of my favorite books to read. If you want to know everything about emotions, it has everything for you in that one book. And it's really great. It synthesizes all your information. Okay. And the second one is TED Talks. And so there's plenty of them out there. Any TED Talks, like if you type in emotional resilience, there's lots of TED Talks to offer for you. 2 movies that I recommend, or 1 movie and 1 TV series, Social Dilemma. I don't know if you guys have watched it, but it really shows how technology can take control of our emotions, our behavior. And so like I said earlier, don't let those technology take control of your emotions. You take control of your own emotions and use technology to its own advantage. The other one is Euphoria. Euphoria is a great one because technology is like a form of addiction, and it's a form of like distraction, and therefore it's a form of addiction. And Euphoria talks about this girl who was very young and was diagnosed with depression, and she was given antidepressant pills to take. And from then on, it led her down to spiraling into substance abuse and smoking and everything that you can imagine a teenager could do when they are diagnosed with a mental illness from a very, very young age, right? And I have a huge stance on on taking pills, like especially antidepressant pills, but that's for another day, I think. Like I wouldn't talk too much about it here. But yeah, it's a really good TV series to talk about how, when we use external factors to comfort our emotions instead of like looking towards our emotions and understanding what they mean, can have really affect on our later life. A podcast recommendation is Making Sense by Sam Harris. So he does a range of podcasts, like from human transcendency all the way through to like politics to self-compassion. Like he does a lot about future thinking and future human society, dystopian as well as utopian. And it's really great. I really love his podcast, but it's quite dense. And so especially if you're not that great with English, it might take a little bit more time to listen, because trust me, every time I listen to his podcast, I need to listen to it twice because I feel like I'm always missing something. And their podcasts are quite long. So yeah, but it's a good one.
Thank you, Victoria, for your sharings on the sources that we can gain more knowledge on the topic. So I have seen the movie Social Dilemma, and I do recommend it, just like Victoria as well. It's a really good one to see how technologies are affecting us. And for other sources, I will definitely try it out as well. So guys, try with me. Okay. So now we will come to the Q&A session. We have many questions from both application forms and in the chat box that Matt have collected. So I will choose a few questions that we haven't discussed about in the talk show. Okay, so the first question is from Anisa Pradani. Victoria, hello. please share some tricks to maintain our motivation while alone and far from home.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've kind of spoke on that slightly earlier. Like, wait, sorry, the question was tips on emotional resilience.
Maintain our motivation in the question. Yeah.
Yeah. So like I said earlier, like, doing daily activities, practicing this every single day, like whatever that makes you happy. Spend your last 20 minutes of your day, or spend the first 20 minutes of your morning, or spend your lunchtime, 20 minutes in your lunchtime in the middle of your day to do something for yourself, and really use that time to kind of like get to know your own body. Like, how am I feeling right now? Like, ask yourself, how am I feeling right now? Okay, like, I'm feeling this way. Why am I feeling this way? Like, talk to yourself. It's really important to kind of get to know you. You're like, your relationship with yourself is the one that is going to be forever, not like your husband, and not that your boyfriend, not your family. Your relationship with yourself is the one that's going to be stuck with you forever. And so if you're not going to learn to get to know yourself, then who else is going to learn to get to know you, right? You are your number one priority. So I would say do something for yourself every single day. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't have to be journaling. It doesn't have to be meditation or hiking. It can be anything, like cleaning. Clean for 20 minutes a day. I'd love that.
Thank you, Victoria. Okay, we have next two questions are actually from two participants that is present in the room today. We have questions from Rachel. And Rachel, do you want to ask Victoria directly your question?
I think the question that I asked was, what is one thing you've learned about yourself since moving away? Was that it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's the one thing that you've learned about yourself, or that's surprised you about yourself?
I think the one thing that I've learned or surprised me about myself was that I'm actually a lot more brave than I thought I was. Until I kind of came, I never thought of myself as being brave and courageous, but I realized that I'm the kind of person when things hit the fan, or everything is crumbling, I know how to like pick the pieces back up and continue fighting on. And I know where to go to, who to talk to, just to continue to survive. And I think that's when I thrive the most, is when I'm really like at my very lowest. Yeah. And that there is a lot of, I think the other thing is that I've learned that there is a lot of emotional experiences that I've had in the past that I've never kind of like looked into it until I've kind of like studied, like lived abroad. And I'm realizing that, oh, wow, there was a lot about myself that I've ignored. And now that I'm having the time to myself, I'm really having to kind of go through those emotional baggages and take them out every single day.
Yeah.
Thank you, Victoria. I hope that answers your question, Rachel. Okay. Now we have the next question from Lina. You want to ask directly?
I don't really remember my question, so yeah, I think you can. Thank you.
Okay, sure, no problem. So, question from Lina is, hi, Victoria. I would like to ask you, how important is it to build our emotional resilience mentally in a world that is constantly changing?
Well, like you just said it yourself, I guess, the world is constantly changing. And so emotional resilience is so important, because if you don't have that emotional resilience to kind of handle the changing climate, then you're just going to either get like, it's either going to happen in two ways, where the environment just crushes you, or the other way, where you just move where the environment goes and not where your heart goes. And so I think emotional resilience is really important. Actually, I can't remember who it was. Some guy, a psychologist, spoke about a resilience bank account, right? It's an investment that you have to put in every single day. Like I've said 100 times in this chat already, it's like an investment. And so every time you do something for yourself, it's like putting money into this bank account, so that when, for example, COVID happens, or you lost your job or something like that, you have that resilient bank account to kind of look into and use to help you go through that challenge. And therefore, that's why it's important to build it every single day, because if you are at your rock bottom and then you go and look at your resilient bank account and there's zero balance in there, then it's going to be so much harder for you to make money or make the investment into it at that point, because you've already kind of in depletion, energy depletion. So yeah.
Thank you, Victoria, and I hope that answered your questions, Lena. So thank you. Okay, and I think that concludes the talk show today. We've come to an end, guys. So thank you, everybody. And before we end, I would want to make some announcement about today's talk show. So Victoria have prepared a saying that maybe her own quote that we should remember from the talk show. So your emotional baggage doesn't have to weight you down, but a tool for you to reflect, learn, and get curious. So yeah, we should learn how to appreciate our emotions. Nothing is wrong, nothing is right. It's all about how we react. So yeah, I think that is a key message of today. So once again, thank you everybody for joining today. Thank you, Victoria, for spending your time to share with us your knowledge, research, and experiences. So on behalf of TCB, thank you everybody for your participation. If you like this talk show today and you want to learn more about soft skills, and we're welcome to help. So please find us in our on our fan page on Facebook and Instagram. And also we are launching TCB Education. We're teaching English to people in needs, and we have free classes for people who first join as well. So we're looking forward for you or maybe your friends, your relatives to join our classes. Thank you. And please follow and like our Instagram and Facebook page and leave us a review on Google. We really appreciate it. So yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you. And I hope that everybody can practice emotional resilience in your life more often. Victoria, you want to say anything?
Yeah, no, I'm so happy to meet you guys and speak to all of you. If you want to talk more, you can definitely Instagram me, or I don't know, wherever you want to talk. I'm so happy to connect with you guys and speak more about it, or even just make a friend. So yeah.
Victoria, can you share your Instagram in the chat box so people can find you if you want to?
Oh, for sure. Let me just do that.
So guys, while Victoria is sharing her link, Matt has sent us feedback form. So we really should appreciate if you can help us fill out the feedback form so we can have better talk shows in the future. Thank you, Victoria, for sending your Instagram.
No worries. Yeah, because what's it called? Sometimes a lot of like BizCom students is where I used to study back in Sydney. So some of the students there messages me about work, not necessarily about emotions, but about work. And so I'm really happy to kind of help if anyone needs it. Not that I am perfect in any way, but if you just need a listening ear, then I'm here for it.
Thank you, Victoria. So yeah, I really hope our talk show today help you guys. So TCB, as we have one talk show every month at the beginning of the month. So we hope that we can see your faces in our December talk show as well, or Masterclass number 6. And if you have finished the feedback form, then really thank you. And you can access the link in the chat box that Matt have sent to access our Facebook page and Instagram to get more information on future events. So once again, thank you everybody, and we wish you courage and happiness in life.